You guys are tuned in to another episode of S&M Radio. I'm Shannon.
I'm Mark.
This episode, we are going back to a movie from before we were even born.
Man, we're going back to the classic era of horror movies, the 1970s. That's when all the good stuff came out, I think.
We're talking about the 1973 movie, The Exorcist.
Yeah, this is back in the day when people really got shocked at the movie theater, you know? And to me, the 70s was like the time when horror really kind of stood out. I mean, you had The Exorcist, you had a year later the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then you had obviously Halloween towards the end of the decade. And to me, it was like that really kind of got it all moving into that new direction. And so The Exorcist is one of those movies that, like, a lot of people say that this is the scariest movie they've ever seen. And to this day, a lot of people are just absolutely terrified of it. It does seem to hold up.
This movie was one of the first horror movies that I became aware of. And the reason for that is when I was a kid and I first started getting an interest in horror. I've told the story before on this show where I watched a movie called Summer School, I believe it is, and there's kids in that movie are doing this project on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and me and my mom were watching the movie Summer School, and I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool, and so we went into the video store and we rented the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and we watched it. But my mother used to tell me this story, and still tells the story, that when she was a kid in 1973, she would have been like 16, 15 years old, something like that. And her older sister, who was a couple years older than her, conned her into going to the movies with her one night. And she didn't know what it was going to be or anything. And it was The Exorcist. It scared her so bad that she slept with my grandparents for like 2 weeks, supposedly.
Wow.
And she's only seen it that one time, and she refuses to watch it. I remember being like in my 20s, and when the whole DVD boom was coming, you remember this, when the director's cut for The Exorcist, or the special edition or whatever they were calling it, was first coming out on DVD, which was like 15 years ago. And they were showing commercials of it on TV, and one of the scenes that they showed on the commercial on TV was the spider crawl down the stairs.
Yep.
And my mother would, at that point, was like, I'd cover her eyes. And
Well, you know, a movie's successful when that's what's happening. That's the reaction people get. You know, the funny thing about this movie for me, I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm trying to figure it out. And I believe in this stuff too, like demons and stuff like that. But like for some reason, this movie never scared me. Not even like a little bit scared me. Like I remember the first time I really remember seeing it, I was a kid, and my mom was like, oh, The Exorcist is on. We should all watch that as a family movie. She turned it on, and she was like making egg rolls in the kitchen. And I just remember her making all these tons of egg rolls. She got this recipe, and we're like all just kind of watching it. Nothing about it ever scared me. And I don't know why. I mean, because it scared everybody else, but to me it's like, and then I've watched it several times since then. The later movies never scared me, or later viewings. And I read the book. I was hoping that would scare me. That didn't scare me. I don't know if I'm just so super desensitized to this stuff, or it just wasn't scary.
See, I wonder if what part of the shock value back in the 70s would have been is the fact that this story is about the demonic possession of a 12-year-old girl, and you are seeing all of this violent, brutal behavior that's displayed in the movie from that 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if, like what you say, with being desensitized to it, is just to the fact that, yeah, back in 1973, people saw that and went like, "What the hell? Oh my god!" And we see it and we're like, "Eh."
Yeah. But even like it seemed like even some people our age, like when they mention it, it's like it's like that one, It never had any sort of impact on me, and I feel weird to say that, but it really didn't. I've wanted it to because I like scary movies to be scary, and I like to be scared. I've tried to make me scared. Like I've given it many shots to do that, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't scare me. And I guess it's maybe because it's so pop culture now, and everybody's talking about it all the time, and so even when I first saw it, I knew about the whole "it's pea soup that she's throwing up" thing. So maybe it was just over analyzed before I saw it. But even as a kid, I didn't really have an interest in it. Like I was, my thing was the slashers. That's where my horror interest was. Like Michael Myers and Jason were far more interesting than demonic possession and poltergeists and stuff like that. To me, it was yeah, it's all right. I never had I never really cared for it that much back then either. I loved the classics like Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think I love those movies. I watch them once a year, both of them. Well, Halloween more than once a year. But this movie, I tried to put it in my Halloween horror movie annual viewing. I'll watch it, but it's I gotta watch The Exorcist now. It's part of October, so I guess I need to sit through that again. But I'm not that into it. It's weird.
When we first decided to do this one, we were talking about how this movie is really known for being pretty faithful to the book.
Yes.
So I got a copy of the book and sat down and started to read it. And I got probably up into the point of just before Regan is possessed.
Okay.
In the book. And I couldn't read the book anymore. I was just like, oh, this is kind of boring. and so I watched the movie again. And I've seen this movie with my mother having the reaction that she had to this movie when she was younger. This was one of those movies that I wasn't allowed to watch when I was a kid. And then, like you had said, I just didn't really have that much interest.
Yeah.
For it. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I know that it was probably after I moved out. It might not have been. It might have been one of these things where at a friend's house or something in high school and go to the video store and, hey, what do you want to see? Oh, well, I've never seen The Exorcist. Let's get that. But it's one of these things that, like you had said, just doesn't really do anything for me. Even nowadays, and not that I'm really ripping on the movie at all, but it's one of those things when you watch it and some of the shocking moments of the movie don't really do much for me. When the movie first came out, when that special edition on DVD, I remember buying it and watched it once and gave the DVD to somebody to borrow to watch after that. And never got the DVD back and was always just kind of whatever. And so, I think I've seen this movie maybe 3 times, maybe 4.
Yeah.
In my adult life. But when I watched this in preparation for this episode a couple of weeks ago, it was one of those things where I threw it on and I was kind of playing on my phone and on my laptop while it was on. Was paying attention to some of the more classic scenes, if you will. So, once the possession is in full effect and she's in bed and, the head's spinning around and she's got the cross and jamming it and, all that stuff. You watch those scenes just because. But yeah, it's again, it's not that it's a bad movie. It's just there. Which is kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it's a very well done movie. I really do. I think it's a very well written movie. I like this. I think the storyline's good, and I love the whole concept of the priest struggling with is this all just psychological or is there something real to this? And he's like really kind of in that battle, and I think that's great. And when you watch the movie, you really realize that the whole movie really isn't about the girl, but it's really about the priest,
Right. Yep.
and it's really about him being taken out, and that's what happens. And I really think that like, you know, and I think it's a fascinating character study of him, you know, where and for that part of it, it's, you know, I appreciate it for what it is. And the, you know, the stuff, it is creepy by all means. It's definitely creepy, and I like the soundtrack. You can clearly hear how John Carpenter was probably influenced for the Halloween theme with that. It's just one of those movies where there was nothing that really hooked me into it. So I appreciate it. I think it's a well done film. I don't need to watch it over and over again, and I don't really. And in like my top list of horror movies, it's really not even there, which is, it seems like wrong to say that, but it's true. It's like, you know, like I think of my top 3 like best horror movies ever, and Texas Chainsaw comes to mind, Halloween comes to mind, Psycho comes to mind. The Exorcist, to me, it's like one of these movies where if you're a horror fan, you definitely have to see it. But it's not one that like really resonates with me or sticks with me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of my issue, or maybe not, issue is not the right word, but like I had said before, you know, my mother had always told me this story when I was a kid, and she still tells the story now if anybody brings up The Exorcist. And so the first time I saw this movie, I think I was expecting to be terrified.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Right.
And even, like I said before, you know, watching it again recently, it's just kind of like, So it's just not my cup of tea, even though I do appreciate the movie being so faithful to the book. That's great. This movie was in the 70s, and, you know, this isn't the only movie in the 70s to get that word of mouth following to it. You know, this when you do some research on the Exorcist movie itself, you know, this has a very similar story to a lot of the movies did, you know, back in those days, to where it was released on a relatively low number of theaters and was getting some word of mouth, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's huge lines of people waiting to get in to see it.
Right.
And it starts building this success and momentum and stuff. And this movie, even though Psycho did break some grounds in the horror genre, this movie was one of the first movies to really be a really high-grossing horror movie, for one thing. But then the other thing that this movie did was, this was the first horror movie to ever be nominated for Academy Award for Best Picture, which is pretty cool.
Sure.
And I don't know if I'm sure there's a couple other things that this movie is responsible for. I do know that this movie, like you had said, probably have some influence going to John Carpenter. There's also, you know, this is one of those things too where when you talk or you listen to interviews with like horror icons, you know, there's a lot of people that will say like, oh, well, you know, this was an inspiration and that was an inspiration, and I took inspiration from The Exorcist and I took inspiration from this and that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to necessarily take anything away from the movie itself. The story itself is good. It's just, honestly, to me, it's a little boring, but it's not like unwatchable. And Linda Blair, who plays the possessed girl in this movie, Regan, is phenomenal in this role.
Oh yeah, she does a great job. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely give it thumbs up. You definitely got to see this film if you're a horror film aficionado.
Unlike the two of us.
Yeah. Right. I think of like The Conjuring too. We talked about that not too long ago. The Conjuring to me is like one of those modern classics. Like it really kind of plays out like a classic film. But in that movie, there's a lot of things I don't really care for. And one of the things probably the thing I don't care for the most was the exorcism scene because it seemed too copied or like thrown in there. Like they threw it in there just because they thought it would excite people. It didn't seem to like fit the storyline that well. This is one of those movies, and I'm trying to think of another horror movie that would be like The Exorcist for me, where it would be like, yeah, you got to see it. Yeah, it's really well done, but it's not like on my top list of I'm going to watch this movie over and over again. Trying to think of something else that fits that bill.
I would say for me it would be along the same lines of The Exorcist. A few years later, well, like 10 years later, would be Poltergeist, for me personally.
Okay, well that's where we would. I actually love the original Poltergeist, so that one I thought was great. The Amityville Horror movie, the original, like it's a classic, But to me, it's just like, whatever. It's you got to see it, but it's not one that I'm like gonna go out of my way to watch every year.
We could do a whole thing on the Amityville Horror.
Oh yeah, we could.
I got so into that like probably 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Did you?
Read the book a couple of times, watched the movie, and then watched a couple of documentaries and stuff. Because there's one of the kids did like a documentary.
Oh wow!
And then watched all this old footage and stuff, and then come to find out that even they were like, "Oh yeah, it's totally fake."
Yeah, I know the house from the remake is not too far from where I live.
The Poltergeist doesn't do anything for me. This one doesn't really do anything for me. I think it's just the subject matter, because I think the whole demon possession exorcism thing isn't just my cup of tea when it comes to movies. Although the Conjuring movie, and I just watched The Conjuring 2 this past week, and I do enjoy those. And I'm not sure if I enjoy those more because I like the actor and actress that are in those movies more than I like the movie itself. But
that could be.
And I'm not saying Exorcist is bad. If we were going to watch a movie together and you gave me 2 movies to choose from, and one was Exorcist and one was probably almost anything else, I would probably pick the other one.
Unless it was zombies.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Then I think I'd have to go with The Exorcist for sure.
I'd just say, let's go get some pizza and go to the bar.
Right. Exactly.